Excellent. All right. Well, thank you very much. Hello, everyone. This is Rebecca Dallin, Assistant Superintendent for Stormwater Quality here at the City of Oklahoma City. I'd like to officially welcome everyone to the July edition of our monthly webinar series. I'm broadcasting today from the Oklahoma Floodplain Managers Association Stormwater Technical Conference here at the NCED Conference Center here in Norman. We've already had lots of great speakers and information today and have enjoyed connecting folks from across the state to collaborate on the best methods to protect stormwater quality. You can see we've got a full agenda today. Also attending the conference from the City of Oklahoma City Stormwater Office is Melanie Lawson, one of our construction and technicians, Chris Stewart, our industrial section supervisor, who happens to be giving a presentation at this conference shortly. And we've also got Monica Walls, our construction section supervisor here at the conference. Monica will try to be available to answer questions. However, we've also got Jimmy Stotts and Joseph Billington back at the office, and they're ready to answer all your questions about today's main presentation. I would like to give a huge thank you to Heavenly, Jimmy, Joseph, and Brooke for keeping today's webinar flowing smoothly and for taking leadership roles during today's program. At this time, I'd like to turn the mic over to Brooke, who also has some news for us today. Brooke?
Thank you, Rebecca. Yes, I do have some news that I'll be sharing toward the end of the webinar. We will begin the program momentarily. I wanted to provide some information to help enhance everyone's experience during the presentation today. In order to reduce background noise, we ask that everyone keep themselves muted during the presentation. If anyone has any questions, feel free to type them into chat. Jimmy and I will be monitoring the chat for questions, and we will answer as many questions as we have time for today. If anyone would like to receive a certificate of attendance for today's webinar, please send Heavenly Mendenhall an email to request it. We'll put her email address into chat so you'll have it handy. Each of the presentations in the webinar series will be available within a week or so after the scheduled webinar date on our website. They'll be under Stormwater Workshops. The section where these webinars are posted is called the 2022 Webinar Series. And today's session will, of course, be the July edition. We'll post a link to the website where you can find these presentations toward the end of today's program. If anyone has any questions at this time, please feel free to type them into chat. But without further ado, we will begin the very short webinar series welcome presentation. Jimmy, please share the welcome video. Jimmy, is it working? Oh, there we go. I can see your file screen with the list of items, but we don't see the video yet. He's going to try resharing. It looks like something was being technically difficult. So he's going to retry sharing that screen, and we'll get that video up momentarily. Sometimes Teams gives us some problems.
My computer says it's only 91 degrees out. That's kind of nice.
That sounds like a lie, though. Is it really only
Yeah,
91?
I'm not sure.
Okay, we can see the file screen again with all of the documents, but we still don't see the video.
Jimmy, when you're sharing, remember to do the share tray and then include a computer sound and then hit window and your movies and T should show up. Movies and TV should show up.
There we
We're-
go. Now we've got it.
Good afternoon and welcome to our monthly stormwater quality webinar series. We're excited to continue providing monthly opportunities so you can learn how to help keep our local waterways clean. Remember, we're all downstream from someone else, so we all need to work together to protect our waterways. During this series, you will have the opportunity to hear from some of our own stormwater quality staff, as well as several guest speakers. This month's presentation will feature our construction section supervisor, Monica Walls. The webinar series continues with additional topics from stormwater quality, a feature in September discussing the utilization of compost for erosion control, additional topics from the DEQ, and topics from wastewater utilities. We hope to see you each month, so be sure to tune in. As we've briefly mentioned, each of the presentations will be available online within a week or so after the presentation is aired live. It will be available on the workshop section of our stormwater quality website. I'll post a direct link to that page in the chat toward the end of today's program. It seems that we're being rather ambitious this year since we've added virtual lunch and learns to the mix. You will need to register for each of these events separately. You can always reach out to our office for more information. We will be sending out a registration announcement closer to each event date. Some of the vendors sponsoring these events have new products and tools that you may not have heard of before, so please be sure to tune into these presentations. You could learn something new which might help streamline your stormwater protection practices. As always, anytime we provide information regarding specific vendors or products, it's not to be considered an endorsement. We provide the information to help you in your research to determine the best products and services that will benefit your own stormwater program. We have recorded each session thus far, and if anyone would like to view the recording, please send Rebecca an email so we can send you the YouTube link as soon as it's ready. These recordings are not on our Oklahoma City website. Some of our presentations will be live and some will be pre-recorded. We do our best to provide as much detailed, accurate information as possible while also working with the presenter's strengths and their schedule. We live and work in a beautiful community here in Oklahoma City. For more information about stormwater, what we're up to, and local regulations, be sure to visit our website.
Excellent. Thank you, Jimmy. Up next is our main presentation for today's webinar. Today, we're going to be hearing from two presenters. Up first is Monica Walls. Monica joined the Oklahoma City Stormwater Quality Division in May of last year as the Environmental Unit Supervisor for the Construction, Permitting, and Auditing section. Monica holds a Master of Science from the University of Oklahoma and a Bachelor of Science from East Central University. She brings 27 years of environmental health and safety experience to the organization. During her tenure, she provided HSE support and guidance to organizations in general industry, agriculture, oil and gas, and the government. When not at work, Monica is spending time with friends and family, attending sporting events and enjoying the outdoors. Joseph Billington will be joining Monica today as a speaker. Joseph joined the Oklahoma City Water Quality Management Division in 2012 as an environmental technician for the environmental section, where he led various projects such as stream assessments, water sampling, and pollution investigations. After 3 years, Joseph moved to the industrial permitting and auditing section, where he conducted stormwater quality inspections for local businesses and city projects. In 2017, Joseph transitioned to the construction, permitting, and auditing section. Since that time, he has been advising permit holders of stormwater quality requirements, conducting inspections in the northeast section of Oklahoma City. When not at work, Joseph enjoys spending time with family and friends, coaching sporting events, and fishing. Again, if anyone has any questions during today's presentation, be sure to type them into chat. Jimmy, please share Monica's presentation.
Good
Perfect, it
afternoon.
looks
My
great.
name is Monica Walls, and I am the Environmental Unit Supervisor for the Stormwater Quality Management Construction Section. The construction section manages the issuance, enforcement, and closure of land disturbing activity permits. Once a permit is issued, specific actions must be taken and maintained by the permit holder to protect our water resources, the environment, and the nearby habitat. To verify the implementation of these protective measures and meet regulatory requirements, the City of Oklahoma City conducts stormwater quality inspections. Today, we'd like to provide an overview of the inspection process and answer any questions that you may have. Before we start the inspection discussion, I would like to introduce our team. The city has several environmental professionals in the construction section. We have one environmental specialist, Jimmy, who conducts desktop reviews of permit documentation before a permit is issued. He also provides technical assistance if needed during inspections. We have 6 environmental technicians that conduct construction-related inspections. To ensure that all areas of the city are covered, the city has been divided into sections or territories, and each technician has an area of responsibility that he or she covers. Jarius, Melanie, and Joseph, for example, cover the north, while Ricky, Brian, and Josh cover the south portions of the city. If you have more than one permanent project, you will be interacting with one or several environmental technicians. We want you to know that the inspection process is and will be the same in each section. As we issue permits and conduct inspections, we are often asked several questions. For example, why are inspections conducted? What's their purpose and intent? When are inspections conducted? And what is the expected frequency of inspections? We're also asked, how is a stormwater quality inspection conducted? And what role does the permit holder have in the inspection process? Today, we would like to answer each one of these questions and provide examples of site conditions observed on previous inspections and what action should be taken to protect the environment and meet regulatory requirements. The first question we are often asked is, why are stormwater quality construction inspections conducted? Which is a very good question. Part of our mission is to provide inspections and enforcement to residents, businesses, and even government agencies who are conducting land disturbing activities in Oklahoma City. The goal is not only to comply with the Federal Clean Water Act, but to protect the city's water infrastructure and waterways so that we can maintain the chemical, physical, and biological integrity of the water. Eliminating discharges of pollutants to surface water not only protects wildlife, but it also allows for the safe recreational use of water by us, residents of Oklahoma City, and downstream users. To accomplish this goal, the Stormwater Quality Construction Section inspects non-exempt land disturbing activities to ensure that the controls and best management practices, or BMPs, utilized to meet the City of Oklahoma City's municipal code requirements. In addition, the inspection process also verifies that specific permit requirements that are outlined in the approved Stormwater Pollution Prevention Plan, or SWPPP, and the Erosion Control Plan, also sometimes referred to as an ECP, are implemented and being maintained. Next, we are often asked, when will stormwater quality and construction inspections be conducted? Routine inspections are conducted during business hours, which range from 7 a.m. and 5 p.m. Monday through Friday. When an environmental technician does arrive on site to a permitted project, safety and security procedures will be followed. Permitted sites are inspected on a regular basis. The site will be inspected initially when the permit is issued and monthly or quarterly depending upon the project scope or potential to discharge and the location. For example, projects located in the Lake Thunderbird watershed are inspected monthly. In addition to routinely scheduled inspections, inspections may be conducted after we receive an Action Center, Oklahoma Department of Environmental Quality referral, or a resident reported concern. Concerns are forwarded to our office by phone, email, and in person. We respond to each one. Inspections are also conducted when our office is notified that a project is completed or a permitted project has changed ownership. Upon completion of a land disturbing activity, a notice of termination must be submitted to close the permit. Upon receipt of a notice of termination, a final inspection is conducted within 20 days. To close the permit, specific stabilization and permit closure parameters must be met. The environmental technician conducting the inspection will outline required actions if needed and summarize the inspection in a inspection report. When our office is notified that property associated with a stormwater quality permit has a new owner, our office will work with both parties to transfer the permit or obtain permit coverage. A site inspection is part of the transfer or transition process. The third question we're often asked is, how is a stormwater quality inspection conducted? The inspection will consist of three main elements: a site paperwork review, site inspection, and inspection report. Let's take a look at each one of these in more depth. When an environmental technician arrives on site to conduct an inspection, he or she is going to request several documents for review. Specifically, the Stormwater Pollution Prevention Plan, the Erosion Control Plan, and site-specific inspection reports will be requested. The inspector is trying to gauge and verify if the SWPPP and Erosion Control Plan reflect current site conditions and if required inspections and maintenance activities are being performed. The Stormwater Pollution Prevention Plan was originally submitted to obtain a permit. We understand during a project that things can change, and those changes should be documented on your SWPPP. It is considered to be a living document. So before an environmental technician conducts an inspection, he or she is going to review the document for those potential changes. For example, are different or additional best management practices being utilized? Have modifications been made on the phases or timing of the project itself? Have you had any personnel changes? And have any modifications been made to the inspection or maintenance procedures that they need to be aware of? If during the review they have any questions as they review the SWPPP, they will discuss those with you and offer suggestions or enhancements that can help you maintain permit compliance. After reviewing the Stormwater Pollution Prevention Plan, the environmental technician is going to ask to review your erosion control plan. The technician is specifically looking to see if controls have been installed in accordance with the approved erosion control plan. And as you are working the project, have modifications been made where you may be adding or removing or changing some of those controls? Are they reflected on your erosion control plan? When a map is marked up, it usually reflects the different phases of the project where you are actively managing the controls and making updates as necessary. That is allowed. For example, if a silt fence is no longer needed in a certain area, it should be marked out and dated. Or if you have stabilized a portion of the property, go ahead and reflect that on your erosion control plan. In addition to updates to controls, the technician is going to be looking to see if the site activity matches the limits of disturbance on the plan. If for some reason you have gone outside those parameters or a question arises about controls, the technician will be addressing that with you during the review process. Next, the environmental technician is going to ask to review your inspection reports. In the past, we've had some confusion on this request. The inspector is specifically asking to review the inspection reports that you have used to document your inspections that you have conducted in accordance with your approved stormwater pollution prevention plan. The plan is going to outline that inspections are to be conducted every 7 days or every 14 days. It's also going to specify that inspection will be conducted 24 hours after a half-inch or greater storm event. When reviewing the inspection reports, the inspector is going to be verifying that inspections are being conducted, and also he or she is going to be looking to see what you're finding as you conduct those inspections. After an inspection, the deficiency should be transitioned to the corrective action log. The log is a tool that can be used to track the corrective actions taken. The environmental technician expects to see items of deficiency on your inspection reports. We understand that controls are damaged during construction activities, weather events, or have reached their use capacity. The environmental technician is looking to see how and when you corrected them. After the record review, the environmental technician will then conduct a site inspection or walkthrough. This is the portion of the inspection where the inspector is going to visually be verifying that controls have been installed, that they were installed correctly, and that they're operating as intended. The environmental technician will be looking at best management practices and controls associated with a construction entrance, perimeter controls, and inlet protection. They'll also be looking at good housekeeping measures regarding chemical storage, concrete washout area, and waste management. They'll also be taking a look at opportunities for stabilization, whether temporarily or for permanent stabilization. Let's take a look at some of the parameters that will be addressed and reviewed during the walkthrough. Permanent sites are required to have a construction entrance and exit. This is a temporary rock stabilized pad located at designated points of entry and exit. The purpose of a stable construction site entrance and exit is to allow time for mud to be removed from the vehicle tires before entering a paved surface. The environmental technician will be inspecting the pad condition and looking for vehicle tracking and/or sediment deposits. If deficiencies are observed, corrective actions will be required, such as removing the sediment deposits or performing maintenance, such as adding more rock aggregate or reshaping, extending the pad. Next, the environmental technician will be looking at the perimeter controls. Perimeter control should be installed before land disturbing activities begin and should be maintained. Several types of controls can be utilized. The B&P Manual for Construction and Land Disturbing Activities outlines how to install several types of controls, such as straw wattles, triangular silk dikes, and silt fence. For example, silt fence should be trenched in at least 6 inches, staked on the downhill side, and be J-hooked on the end. The environmental technician will be verifying that controls are installed, properly placed, and are functioning as intended. A green buffer is a great way to protect a perimeter. The more vegetation left around a site, the easier it is to control erosion. When any waters of the state, such as streams or creeks, are located on or immediately adjacent to a site, we must maintain at least 50 feet of a natural buffer zone. This is measured from the top of the bank to the disturbed portion of the site. Please note that 100 feet is required if the project is located within the Lake Thunderbird watershed. The environmental technician will be evaluating the utilization of buffers when inspecting perimeter controls. Some perimeter projects utilize inlet protection. Inlet protection should be inspected with the other sediment and erosion controls. Traffic, rain, and the sun impact the functionality of the controls. For example, if the inlet protection is full of dirt, it will not let the street drain properly. Or, if the inlet protection has been damaged, sediment could be entering the municipal separate storm sewer system. So it is important that inlet protection be maintained and or replaced as needed. The environmental technician will be inspecting inlet protection to identify any potential concerns. Another item the environmental technician will be inspecting is outfall protection. Rock check dams and sediment basins are 2 examples. A sediment basin is a temporary pond built on a construction site designed to capture eroded or disturbed soil that is washed off during a rain event. The goal is to allow the sediment to settle in the sediment basin, thereby protecting the water quality of nearby receiving waterways. For common drainage locations that serve an area with 10 or more disturbed acres, or 5 or more in the Lake Thunderbird watershed at one time, a temporary or permanent sediment basin is required. Land disturbing activity is defined in our municipal code as any land change which may result in soil erosion from water and wind and the movement of sediments into community waters or onto the lands and the roadways within the community. Therefore, during land disturbing activities, measures must be in place to control dust. Several measures can be and should be used to control dust, such as establishing a watering schedule, utilizing ground cover or vegetation, and requiring slow vehicle traffic on site. If dust concerns are observed, the environmental technician will be asking for an overview of the dust control measures that are being utilized. If concrete is going to be used on the project, a concrete washout must be installed and it will be inspected by the environmental technician. The washout should be located away from conveyances in an area that is easily accessible. In addition, the concrete washout should be labeled, free of leaks or damage, and emptied or cleaned as needed. Sediment is not the only pollutant on permitted sites. Environmental technicians will also be inspecting the site for the other potential pollution sources. For example, portable toilets can be a pollutant source, and they should be located in an area away from traffic flow, conveyances, and secured to prevent it from tipping over. Chemical containers and tanks used on site should be closed when not in use, placed in secondary containment, and are covered from the elements. Containers and tanks should also be inspected regularly for damage or leaks. Construction materials should be stored properly, and waste should be placed in designated waste containers. Waste containers are to be closed or covered when not in use to minimize potential for blowables or floatables. This is situations where trash and debris can be blown or carried off the property or into nearby waterways. Stabilization measures are to be initiated within 14 days after construction activity is temporarily or permanently stopped, unless earth-disturbing activities will be resumed within 21 days. Please note that this applies to portions or sections of the permitted project. A combination of temporary or permanent stabilization measures should be implemented depending upon the stage of the project. Examples of different techniques that can be used include temporary seeding, erosion control blankets, mulch, permanent seeding, sod, turf reinforced mats, riprap slope protection, and hyding. The goal is to stabilize disturbed soil as quickly as possible to minimize erosion and sediment discharge. The sooner stabilization measures are implemented, the sooner final stabilization requirements will be met for permit closure. Stabilization requirements will be routinely inspected and will be a permit closure requirement. We have covered several permit requirements. Now, I'd like to show several examples of site conditions and get feedback from Joseph Billington, one of our environmental technicians, on the compliance status and what action should be taken to correct the identified deficiencies.
So what does your inspector see as he's coming up to the site? So before we even get to your site, if we're seeing tracking coming on and off the site, before we even arrive to see if you have a construction entrance, we know that there's an issue. As we're coming on and off your site, we're going to be trying to stick to the construction entrance. We're coming over it, we're checking out the rock aggregate, making sure it's the proper size, seeing if you have a filter fabric installed underneath to keep the rock from being crushed down into the mud. Does it need new rock installed? Is it doing the job to keep sediment on site? We'll be on your site, we'll be looking for a SWP, whether you have the SWP located on the site in a mailbox, like in this picture, or you've uploaded it and we're able to access it on our computers, or do I need to look at your NOI and find out where the SWP is located and give you a call and meet with you? On this last picture, as we're arriving on the site on this last one, our main issue we would have is dust generation. During drier times of the year, you want to try and limit your activity on the site to minimize the amount of dust being generated. Make sure if you have your water truck going, you're running it more frequently through those areas of high traffic. With this site, unless it was a large warehouse, they probably shouldn't have devegetated that much land. Use that construction phasing to help lower your potential to pollute. We will have resident complaints coming in during the wetter periods. It's mainly going to be related to your construction entrance and tracking. If sometimes, no matter how much rock is down, you're going to track off. But if you're practicing good housekeeping and keeping up your construction entrance and getting out there recovering the sediment after it goes off site, you can reduce the amount of complaints coming in and reduce the further generated inspections and possible enforcement issues. If you need to know how to construct a proper construction entrance, the BMP manual is located at stormwater.okc.gov, and we cover all the major BMPs that you would need with your stormwater permit.
Joseph, as you're conducting inspections and you observe site conditions like these 3 examples, what are your recommendations to the permit holders?
So on all of these, it's almost a complete lack of any kind of controls. This first one, if the structure was actually built and it looked like this, I would give them some leeway and assume, okay, they're prepping to lay sod and conduct final stabilization. But to begin with, there should have been sod installed all the way along the curb line there. And it doesn't appear to be the case, or it's just been ran completely into the ground. The second one, you've got riffles just coming all the way down the sideline. This is a slope that once you have your final grade done and it's sloped out like this and you've got your inlet / outlet box in there, you're not going to be doing any more work in there. You could have seeded this, you could have sodded this, you could have done anything to just have this part. You're not going to be back over here, finalize it as quick as you can and be done with it. This last one, they've kind of bermed it up, and while that's going to contain a lot of it, you don't see any kind of perimeter control anywhere along this. This one, it did slope out towards the street and then back out to the east, and it just a complete lack of controls, and it shows me that you're just trying to get in, get the job done, and get out without complying with your permit.
So you will obviously address this in your inspection report. Will you come back and do a follow-up inspection?
Yeah, when it's a complete lack of controls, we need to follow up and make sure that the controls are in place and that we're both in compliance with your permit and the city with our state permit.
Joseph, during our discussion so far, we talked about a number of items you've identified where deficiencies were observed. Are there cases where on permitted sites where you see good installation and utilization of controls? I know you conduct a number of inspections every day and you're managing and overseeing several hundred permitted sites. What are some of the observations you see in these examples?
So with these examples, on this first one, I like that they used the straw wattles around it and they didn't stake through the top of it. This allows you to maneuver the controls in and out of the way if you have workers or subcontractors on site, because they tend to have a habit of just destroying your controls. And this way, they're able to move them, put them back at the end of the workday, and everything should be staying on site. On the next example, you've got some great wire-back silt fence installed. Looks like they used metal stakes to keep it in. They kept it well away from the curb. They disturbed only the area they need to be working in at that point, and it's a great looking site.
Thank you.
So these 3 are all examples of failures of installed controls. With this first picture, you could see they had a double layer of silt fence there, which might have been fine and worked great before the house had been built and the roof was in place and all that impervious surface was added. And now it's come and it's overwhelmed it. You can see your subcontractor is just backed right over it to do what he's there to do. And he's going to drive off the site and leave the mess at the end of the day that, like we covered before, you're responsible for. On this second one, we have our controls installed along the flume. Both sides of that flume should be vegetated. It looks like maybe they were at one time, but when they came and trenched through, kicked a lot of that dirt into the channel, and now it's just on an express lane off your site and into our creeks and waterways. This next one, it's a single strand of silt fence that has received a lot of sediment. It's overloaded. Like, all of these could be prevented with better emplacement of erosion controls, That third one, if that much sediment's getting moved towards it, that means you do not have enough controls upstream from that. You need to minimize that water velocity, slow it down, give sediment the chance to get caught up and settle out elsewhere, so you're not having to replace your controls after every rainfall.
Another question that permit holders also ask, and were asked by residents, is do they need to clean up the sediment that has been discharged?
Absolutely. You should be doing that within 48 hours of your last half-inch rain event. For most sites in the TMDL areas, for any sort of rain event, you need to be out there cleaning that up.
Joseph, we've talked about a number of sediment and erosion controls. We also need to take a look at inlet protection. We have a couple of examples here on the slides of permitted sites and some observations we've seen in the past. What are some of the things that stand out to you, and what recommendations do you have for permit holders to correct these deficiencies?
So these are all inlet controls that have been installed. Three of them they require some maintenance. One of them is still fairly new and in good shape with just some bad work going on around it. Now with this first one, we need to remove the accumulated sediment by taking the rock bags or sandbags, removing them from there, collecting all the sediment up. You've got a straw wattle there that appears to have grass growing through it. If it's no longer needed, maybe remove a portion of it, get rid of it. Just get your inlet or flume in this case back to looking right, put your rock bags back in place, and if you're still getting this load of sediment coming down towards it, you're again having an issue with slowing your water velocity coming into the control. On the next one, it's another one where someone's gone in, installed their sediment bags in the inlets, and there's just a habit of them being forgotten and not maintained. If you're not checking these out when you're coming after a rain event and removing the sediment, eventually they're going to either fill up all the way with sediment, or like this one, have grass start growing out of the top of it, which lets us know it's been a long time since anyone even looked at them. This next one, things look good, you've done your job, and then someone comes in with a stockpile and they dump it right on the edge of the curb over the inlet. We need to relocate those further away from the curb. Try to never place them over an inlet, because then you're just defeating your control in straight out of the gate. This last one, you had a good working erosion control measure working on the inlet. It's been ran over multiple times. Your filter fabric's torn up, your triangular silt dikes have been destroyed. It's just time to pull all this and replace it.
Joseph, a lot of our observations have been about sediment. What are some of your comments regarding some other potential contaminants that could be on a permitted site?
So let's start with this first picture here. It looks great. That's some properly installed wattles. They're staked down. They're coming all the way down. They've got J hooks on them to slow that water down and settle that sediment out. They've done a great job. And then someone comes along and drops a porta potty right there on a slope outside of the controls on the pavement, and it's not secured or tied down. One good Oklahoma wind gust comes through, takes it out. All of that's going to run right down the skirting, straight into the storm drain. On this next one, initially you had a good concrete washout here. They've got the fabric down to keep that washout water contained, not leaching into the groundwater. Now it's at a point that it's been too heavily used. Each time they're not pulling back quite as far, they're dropping further and further outside of your containment area. It's time to either clean up around it and install a new one, or move and put one elsewhere. And this last one, this is a completed project. You've got your sod down, you've got uniform coverage. It looks to be established as much as it can in its dormant phase, and it's a good looking site and it's ready to close. Now you just need to make sure to submit your notice of termination. So when the water is leaving your site, it's discharging the water and the sediments and the floatables and anything else that you failed to maintain on your site to the MS4, which is then running into a creek and then further downstream into a lake and our drinking water supply. And this is just an example of what is running off a site and where it's going, where it's ending up, and how it looks coming off your site.
Joseph, we've looked at a number of different examples of observation on a variety of different permitted sites. What are some final thoughts you have for permit holders as they are conducting inspections on their site and then when they participate with you in responding to an inspection you've conducted?
Ultimately, as an environmental technician for the city of Oklahoma City, it's really my job to help you do your job. We're both trying to stay in compliance. Um, if you have questions, you need ideas, you can always reach out. It's really not all about enforcement. Sometimes it's just about education and assisting each other to reduce this potential for pollution and help you quickly get your job done and move on to the next site.
Thank you, Joseph. We appreciate your help and your input today.
No problem.
After Joseph and the other environmental technicians complete an inspection, they document their findings on an inspection report. The report is emailed to the designated permit point of contact. If additional people, such as employees on the pollution prevention team or subcontractors, need the information, the permit point of contact will need to distribute the information. If you have any questions about an inspection, reach out to the environmental technician for more information. A follow-up meeting or conference call can be scheduled. A spirit of cooperation is our mindset when it comes to on-site compliance. If you have a question or concern, please reach out to us. We're happy to talk to you on the phone, meet with you on site, and provide training. However, on-site compliance is the responsibility of the permit holder. We like to consider ourselves as a resource to assist in on-site compliance, but we will use enforcement when necessary. Several tools are utilized. The first one is the inspection report. This is a summary of observations that were made during the inspection, and it may or may not require a reinspection. It depends upon the observations during the inspection. Another tool we have and utilize is a notice of violation. An NOV is issued when corrections are required because the City of Oklahoma City Municipal Code has been violated. When an NOV is issued, we also issue a compliance order. This outlines the instructions in regards to what needs to be accomplished, completed to obtain compliance. A designated completion date will be specified on the compliance order. Another tool that is used during enforcement is a cease and desist. This will be issued when work needs to be stopped until the site can meet the municipal code and/or permit requirements. The last tool that we have is the citation. This is issued and a court appearance is required by the permit holder to respond to a notice of violation. Citations are issued after multiple NOVs have been issued and we still are unable to obtain permit compliance or compliance with the municipal code. As all of these enforcement tools are utilized, anytime an environmental technician is required to go out to a site to reinspect it for a non-compliance issue, a $35 fee can be assessed to that permit holder. So over time, we hope that this is not the case. And as we are conducting our inspections and communicating with you as a permit holder, we hope they're able to work with you to resolve these issues so that enforcement actions are not required. But if they are, we do have a process in place within the city that can be utilized. In summary, the stormwater quality construction section wants you to complete your land disturbing activities. We are here to help you do so in an environmentally responsible manner. If you have questions about your project or an inspection report, please reach out to your designated environmental technician. If you have specific questions today about the inspection process, Jimmy and Joseph are both online, and they're happy to answer any questions or provide additional information that you may need. Thank you very much.
thank you, Monica and Joseph. That was a great presentation. Very interesting information and helpful. If anyone has any questions, be sure to type them into chat. And I did see one question come into the chat that Joseph answered, so I'll go ahead and read that and then read the answer as well. So Dylan asked if the street inlet is by the driveway, by the entrance in which which the entrance is rocked, would you recommend inlet protection still? And Joseph's response was, depending on the water flow and what areas are disturbed, you will still have water from other areas entering that inlet. Also, if you have heavy traffic on off-site, you will still have sediment and rocks tracked off. So that sounds like, yes, that would still be recommended. And if Joseph, if you want to add any more to that, or if Dylan, if you have a follow-up question, feel free to type that into chat. And if anyone else has any questions, feel free to type them into chat as well. Okay, I don't see anyone typing. If we get a question that comes in, I'll circle back around. Jimmy, let me know if another question comes in. So as Rebecca mentioned earlier, I do have some news to share. Unfortunately, my time in stormwater has come to an end. I have accepted a different position with the city, working with a new program geared toward small, minority, and local business use for city contracts and construction projects. So if you have any stormwater outreach needs or questions, we have people in the office answering questions until a new outreach coordinator is found. I have enjoyed my time in stormwater and getting to know and work with many of you. My contact information will remain the same since I'll still be at the city. So if you need to get a hold of me, you can. Now back to the webinar. As a reminder, oh, it looks like we did have a question pop in. So let's pause for a second and work with that. Marcus said, Joseph, you mentioned being able to keep our SWPPP online. Is it also possible to keep the reports inspections there as well? I don't think Joseph has a camera, so he will probably respond to that question, or if Jimmy wants to jump in and answer it, that would also be an option as well. Anyway, as he's typing a response to you, Marcus, I'm going to go ahead and continue. So as a reminder, if anyone would like to receive a certificate of attendance for today's presentation, please send Heavenly an email to request it. We ask that you don't request certificates in chat because we may not have your email address linked to the username on Teams. We should be able to get their certificates out later this week, and we will copy and paste Heavenly's email into chat. And as we've mentioned, a recording of today's presentation will be available on our website in the next week or so, and we'll put that website into chat for you as well. So to answer Marcus's question, Jimmy responded, yes, you could upload them to the Acela portal. And then with that, feel free to continue asking questions, but I'd like to thank you for attending today's session. We hope everyone enjoyed the presentation, and we hope to see you next month on August 17th at 1 p.m. This is Rebecca's spot, and I'm reading it for her. I'm going to continue. August 17th at 1 p.m. The next installment in the Stormwater webinar series. The presentation will be provided by Dawson McNeil, our environmental section supervisor. He will be discussing their section's 2021 Oklahoma River Bacteria Monitoring Project. Have a great afternoon, everyone, and we will stay online to answer any more questions that come in.
Yep. Thanks, Brooke and Jimmy and